So let's go ahead and go to the championship. Why don't we? Um, there are a lot of signings we can talk about. There's just a whole lot of stuff, and I'm going to spam it into the chat if you're in the live stream. And as always, I'll put it into the chat down into into the description I got there. And we're going to look at this kind of transfer tracker and just kind of look at what has really caught our eye in the championship. Now, there have been some moves out of the Super League, some really nice moves out of the Super League, and we do want to discuss those at some point. But as we are kind of into the slow drip of the Super League, as much as I do want to talk about Riley Mattingly Parker going over to Carolina because I love her with my entire heart, I can't spend the entire 10 minutes talking about that. So,
and hey, real quick, if I was late to this podcast because I was recording another podcast, so go check out RBLR Sun if you want to hear everything about those Super League transfers.
Yes, please go check them out. What about some signings that have caught your eye? Because there have definitely been some interesting ones and some marquee names leaving. Some of them that caught my eye of people who left the league altogether. Turcic and Marlon Santos both went to the same team in like Iraq or Iran. I don't know. There's just some
no
team.
idea. That's awesome.
There was just some team in Iran that watched Memphis and said, we want those guys. And they did. And they went out and won their first game. And they are, I don't know, it's fun. But those are two names that are off the free agency list. So what free agent signings have you guys seen that have really caught your eye?
This one almost feels like I'm cheating, but hear me out, that Burton Jackson returning to Pittsburgh is a gigantic deal.
Yeah.
Like, obviously he was unreal in that 6 or 7 games he had on loan at the end of last season. But when he became a free agent, when I think Real Monarchs let him go, there was a real question of, is Pittsburgh going to spend the money to sign a player that presumably had a lot of USL interest? And so to get him back and to have that option for 2026, gigantic for this team, just given the offensive spark he provided and the kind of different facet he brings to Lily Ball that arguably we haven't seen someone with that level of dynamism since probably Russell Cicerone was in the team. So yeah, massive to get him back for Pittsburgh.
I think. Ron, so go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to kind of move on to a different transfer if you want to add on to it.
No, go ahead.
So one of the ones that really, I guess it's just a looser conversation that I want to have is, hey, I love League One to championship signings. I think that they need to happen more. I think some general managers need to get their head out of their tail, basically, and realize that some of those players are better than the players on your own team because they're great. And, Stefan Lukic is a great signing for FC Tulsa out of Chattanooga. But is there anyone from Chattanooga left? I mean, the Red Wolves, it's sad. It's almost sad at this point. They are living up to the Sad Wolves moniker because it's every player that has ever been in the forward half of the lineup, they are gone. They just don't exist anymore with the team.
Lukic is somebody who, obviously, between NoCo and Chattanooga, he's been a real grinder of a player. Like, he knows how to throw his body around. He's good in the right wing. He can play striker. I think it's that ability to kind of sniff out opportunities around goal and to get into good positions that makes him a player that's kind of easy to underrate, but is constantly effective. And I think it's a really good piece of scouting for Tulsa, who clearly is paying attention to League One, to pick up a player like Lukic. I don't know if he's going to be a day one starter, but he's somebody who's going to find minutes and earn minutes because of that sensibility he brings. In general, with Tulsa, you love everything they've done this offseason. Oh, yeah. Khalil and Medkar to kick it off signing-wise, Lamar Batista as well into the defensive line. And then, of course, Caleb Sewell coming in as, I think, sporting director and GM both. That feels like a big step for the way that this team is going to be run. Like last season was a transitional one to be sure, but really it's been a transitional 3 or 4 years in Tulsa. This feels like with Luke Spencer on the sideline, with Mario Sanchez kind of doing technical director things, and then Sewell completing the triumvirate, something that Tulsa can finally build on for more than just 1 year. And you like to see the core that they're putting together alongside that front office personnel. So big ups to Tulsa for what's been a huge offseason for them.
Yeah, and for a Tulsa team who finished just 4 points out of a playoff spot, they're very easily able to flip that to being in the heart of a playoff race this season. And they opened the year with 4 of their first 5 games at home, which could be massive for them starting the season off on the right foot.
Some other transfers that have happened. I know we're kind of speaking about free agency, but like I kind of mentioned at the top of this segment, the free agency pool is about to that bubble's about to burst within the next 3 days because of these preseasons starting and medicals getting going. Like that bubble's about to burst out unless you're Lexington, who just continues to announce players. I don't know. I guess they've refused to do medicals. They just do not care. They weird me out. Although Juve apparently leaving, which is fascinating. They have to be getting money for him if he's leaving. I think the biggest news here is Wilson Harris. He's going over to Israel, and in general, the transfer was a bit bizarre because he and the club he went to announced that he was signing about a day or two before Louisville City announced it. And I have because I was kind of following along when Marlon Santos went to Israel about 3 years ago. Israel. Oh my gosh, Israeli. There we go. I got there. Clubs kind of announce things fast before the other teams do. It's just kind of a weird thing that they just kind of do. It left Louisville City in a weird place where fans were like, is this happening? Is this not happening? Is this just them putting, cart before horse? Like, what's going on? And obviously you have the natural succession in Philip freaking Goodrum. I feel so sorry for Louisville City fans. They have to replace Wilson Harris with Philip Goodrum. I hate it for him. But it's still a shock if you're a Lou City fan.
No, definitely. And I was talking to people who think it might have been the process of selling him and kind of rushing that announcement might have been sped along by just the reporting about the story. And Harris is somebody who's a real success story for Louisville City. He came in obviously with kind of that tweener status where he was killing the game for SKC2 and he couldn't get the MLS minutes to really keep furthering his career. And Louisville City made him the guy. Like he was there anchoring the line, really kind of leading that youth movement of, you've got the Winder brothers, obviously, Carlos Mogul, but you're also bringing in players like Harris and Ray Serrano. And Harris was really at the vanguard of that. He blossomed into somebody who not only was going to score goals, but contribute defensively. I thought he really developed as a runner without the ball as well. And you saw that constantly in 2024. It's a deserved transfer for him and a deserved reward for the club to get something back for him. And exactly, that's why you go out and get Philip Goodrum. Our friend Nicholas Murray, who's in the chat, wrote a very good piece for the league talking about the fact that, that's a huge deal to have Goodrum waiting in the wings. And frankly, you kind of figured that when they went out and paid a interleague record to go get Goodrum, there was a reason for it. Like he wasn't just going to be the number 2 behind Harris for a long time. So we're going to see what happens next season. But I think Goodrum has the exact skill set and certainly has the track record of success that ought to make Louisville City fans excited.
Yeah, and you're just seeing a lot more from Louisville City who know how to do player management in terms of transfers, planning out their squad for many years. Within that same article that Nicholas Murray pointed out, there are 4 players who are still on the roster from that 2021 USL Championship playoff team that speaks to the longevity of this team, that Louisville City, their plans work in years rather than just let us get through the end of the season, then we'll reevaluate. So it's a really impressive move from a team that I think Louisville fans should not be concerned about finding their footing again for the upcoming season.
When we are talking about other transfers that kind of stick out, for me, the one that I really love, and it was reported kind of early about 2 weeks ago, I think ish, but yet it still sort of crushed my soul when I saw it. Was, and I say this firmly as a Birmingham Legion fan, I mean that in that way, but it makes me excited as just a fan of watching these teams. Johnny Clean to Charleston is just so perfect, and it makes me want to throw up.
Charleston is reloading in like a major way between him, what they've got with Douglas Martinez, what they've added defensively, depth wise with Blackstock and Ekponono. There's not a spot on this team where you feel like somebody could get injured and they're not going to drop off one iota. There's competition at almost every spot. You just feel like the Battery are going to be back and be a force in the East again next year.
Yeah, I mean, we'll be looking at, again, I think Charleston is going to be top 2 in the Eastern Conference like they've been last season and the year before.
What about some others? I mean, we could probably look at, well, everything that is Lexington, because I do really like what Lexington is building, but without knowing for sure what kind of system they're going to put onto the pitch, especially with Jeff seems to be moving on. What can you expect? I mean, we can guess based on what we saw with Oregon State, but again, that's just a guess. What else is standing out to us?
I think the Juve thing is interesting because, yes, he was a key player for that team, but he's also somebody who was kind of up and down when he did get the run in the championship. And moreover, they've got 5 other attacking midfielders signed already. And the thing is, like, you don't go out and get somebody like a Midence from Central Valley, who's the reigning, I think, League One Young Player of the Year, and maybe the assist leader as well. I think both of those things are true. Like, that's somebody who's going to demand minutes. Elliot Goldthorpe, from the conversations I've had with people in the know, like, they think him coming over from Vancouver is going to be a day one difference maker for this team. Marcus Epps isn't signing in Lexington unless he's going to get some real minutes there. So I think that in terms of the attacking group, they're going to be fine without Juve. To me, given the depth they've got in central defense right now, it feels like it's going to be a back 3 for this team. And with someone like a Danny Barbier and with Joe Hafferty, who we mentioned earlier, you've got the players at the wide spots in that setup who can really do damage, who can carry the ball. Kendall Burks, we had the proof of concept last season with San Antonio. If you want somebody at the heart of your defense who's just going to clean up any and all danger, there's not a better player in the league to do it. For me, I think you still need some depth at striker. Like Cameron Lancaster, he's that dude, but it's 2025 and you kind of need to have a succession plan in place. So somebody who can compete for minutes and displace him, sort of in the style that we've seen with Charleston, right? So if you're Lexington, continuing to add that 1 or 2 more pieces that this team needs to get over the top. But by and large, like, I think that they're ready to kind of recreate what we've seen from Boss traditionally across those other steps of a team that's pressureful, that's playing a pretty modern possession game. I'm excited to see how it pans out in practice.
Yeah, it's been a Lexington team that has approached this offseason with the seriousness of moving up to the USL Championship that it's been required. They're not just simply bringing up what was the USL 1 team. They're bringing up parts of their USL 1 team while also adding in those key figures to make them competitive here for the championship. We spoke about it earlier for Las Vegas about Joe Hafferty being a club record transfer. You don't come up to the championship and throw around that level of money to just have it be like not taking this seriously. You add in a veteran leader in Speedy Williams coming in, as well as someone who's familiar with this league as well, who can kind of help set the tone for the championship. That it's going to be an incredibly interesting season for Lexington ahead. And the only question mark is, how are they going to cope with the travel of playing in the Western Conference?
I just want to quickly pivot because I just need to get this off of my brain. One signing that has been raising eyebrows for me is Tristan Henry going to Phoenix, who Tristan Henry is He's a guy that I feel like can fit what Rocco Rios Novo did decently. Not as well as Rocco, but really no one in the league besides maybe Coque Vegas did it as well as Rocco did. But Tristan Henry, he kind of fits the mold. He can do the things, good shot stopper. Kind of got a chance in Memphis, didn't fully take it, but it was okay. I do just need to share this, and this is totally me being around actual teenagers every single day. Apparently, Tristan Henry, according to Transfermarkt, got his start at Sigma FC, and that just threw me for a loop. That just had to make me stop for a little bit. There's some people who are listening to this who have teenage kids, and they're like, there's a lot of brain rot going on right now. And yes, that's just where I am right now.
That gagged me, man. That took me out. I will say with Tristan Henry, obviously Phoenix won't be the same team we saw last season, but something somewhat unique about Phoenix is that they really try to keep that institutionalized philosophy to the way they play the game. So even if it is a different coaching staff, even if it is a different goalkeeper, they're trying to keep the ball on the ground. And what we saw from Tristan Henry for, I think, 5 years in the Canadian Premiership is that this guy is very good with the ball at his feet, a good short passer, accurate. We even saw a bit in Memphis, too, where they'd have him kind of step out into possession, almost Coque Vegas style, and become that added player at the base of the setup. So for Phoenix Rising, it's a natural fit. And obviously, the shot stopping has been excellent for Henry over the years. It was good in Memphis when he got the chance to play as well. He's somebody who's going to bring in some veteran leadership for a team that's signed a lot of players who are kind of young prospects, many of whom are coming over from Next Pro and especially North Texas. Feels like a good steadying hand to have around for Rising.
Yeah, and you have Pamadou Ka as their new manager coming in for Phoenix Rising, someone who had managed in the Canadian Premier League opposite Tristan Henry on a few occasions as well, whenever they would meet in their matches up there. And he's been a rising star within the coaching ranks for quite some time. That Phoenix should feel pretty certain with him at the helm and the players they're currently bringing in that the year should be better than what we saw from 2024.
You know, I'm just kind of sitting here, and someone did throw in the Miami FC, and just kind of the comment of, there will be Miami trial players making up the season's roster to be bottom feeders. They announced a player returning like today or a couple of days ago. Dalton
Knudsen
is.
He played like 30 games. He was, I think, maybe their most used player. Don't quote me on that, but he's good ish.
I just don't. If you're Miami, and obviously we're getting to the time where free agents are about to be signing, is Miami about to kind of become last chance U of the USL in terms of USL championship players?
And just to address a comment about is Lopez still at Miami? We don't know who's at Miami. I think Miami's announced one returning player right now, so they're just like the mystery box of the league. I have heard, from what I've heard, like I think it is really the last chance you kind of thing. Like they're signing guys who were out of favor. They've shown things in the past, but maybe haven't done it consistently enough. It's certainly going to be a team at the end of the day. But yeah, I'm excited to see how they pan out in 2025.
Honestly, we should go based off of Kaler's recommendation where we just, whoever is leading Miami right now, we just keep them in a room and just cameras, you have 30 days to build a team that makes it to the second round of the USL playoffs. Go.
It was Phil's idea last year for Vegas. Someone missed out on a Lifetime documentary. We have the chance to recreate this in the funniest way possible. Also,
make me GM, and then we can make some content out of this. Here we go, Miami.
I mean, hey, if
also,
we're seeing people do these 24/7-hour streams on Twitch, there's a way we can monetize this and make it an actual concept.
I Show Speed shows up to be the GM of of the Miami FC. Also, North Colorado, sorry, North Carolina announces their returners, and I mean it looks like a good group. And these are mostly guys that were already announced as multi-year deals. We just needed proof that North Carolina was breathing, and we got that. I I want to preface this with signings are coming. Yes, signings are coming. And North Carolina is a team that does like to promote within a good bit with the academy, at least to make up the 18, maybe get a few minutes at time to time. But it, it everything you've heard off the field from North Carolina this offseason, this being announced so late that your multi-year guys are indeed coming back, that bodes zero confidence for me personally.
I mean, I think at a certain extent, it's just like a matter of social media strategy. Some teams want to be more forward and active about it. Some teams are North Carolina. This core is a core that we saw make the playoffs last season. I think John Bradford had a very strong identity with how he wanted that team to set up. And almost all of the pieces, except for Lamar Batista, are back and ready to run that system once again. Obviously, you want to see North Carolina invest and add some pieces around the edges. I think it will be telling if they actually do so and the caliber of free agent they're bringing in after they really tried to make a statement heading into 2024 when they were making the jump. But overall, like, yes, you can say, I wish the communications were a little bit more timely, but I'm choosing to kind of trust what I'm seeing on the lineup card rather than trying to read the tea leaves of when and how they got the news out.
Yeah, I think it's just we get into this really challenging part of the preseason slate where there are teams who want to be forthcoming, who want to announce a signing every day, a la like a Lexington. Then you get to teams who are just going to kind of really slow roll it into the year. I think I saw on a Blue Sky earlier today, someone was mentioning that the Richmond Kickers would have a lot of gaps in between their posts of time. Like I think before they had posted earlier today, they'd went 9 days previously since their last post. So yeah, we're getting into that kind of point of the season where there are teams who are just kind of approaching things differently. We're going to see a lot of my favorite trialists, if you will, who competing in any of these preseason games. So it really just comes down to just because you're not seeing something happening online doesn't mean something's not happening behind the scenes. I do at least want to give a shout out for North Carolina to dump Ticketmaster to go to apparently a ticketing service that doesn't have any ticket fees. Jump, they had announced that primarily for the NC Courage, but obviously North Carolina's built in with that as well. So yeah, that's another at least impactful signing for their fans.
Before we move on to a little bit of League One and then hit our favorite free agents that are still left, and again, precursor, some of these free agents have already signed, but for the point being, we're just going to kind of act
And you
like
know
they
what?
haven't.
I would go out on a limb, and I have very little insider knowledge. I would guarantee that probably 90% of the people we talk about will have signed, which is what's so fun about this whole process.
That they are signed. We're just acting like they haven't. And before anybody DMs us, is like, well, we know they signed. It's like,
We have
great.
no idea. Like we personally, we're idiots. We don't know, but yeah.
I kind of want to go to a question from Luciano, which was, many teams in the leagues are new, including especially League One right now, and they haven't existed until recently. Do you see any budding rivalries going on this season? And I want to just jump in here and say, I think we're going to see, especially um, with the Jägermeister Cup, I think you're going to see a ton of rivalries pop up cross league. I think there's going to be teams in the championship who are going to hate League One teams, and it's going to start early. And I think it's going to be really fun to see.
You think about like Greenville and Charleston, teams that are fairly close to each other and both are extremely well run. Like that's going to be a killer matchup that you get to see from the beginning. I'm excited to see everything Texoma. Like obviously that's a team we know very little about right now, but getting them on the field against clubs that are pretty proximate is going to be so fun to see. I don't know if Ulta and Orange County play, but again, like same energy there. Getting that local rivalry across the levels, that's going to be fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, you have Ulta and Orange County in the same group for the Jägermeister Cup. But yeah, I mean, if you're going to look at other matchups, you see Portland Hearts of Pine up in the Northeast trying to make a lot of noise coming in and competing with the team that won the Eastern Conference in Rhode Island. You see a Hartford team who doesn't want to get shown up by Westchester, who doesn't want to get shown up by Portland Hearts of Pine to come into the league as well. The one that I have at least circled is you're going to see a Louisville-Lexington matchups this year that are going to be really interesting because for the first time since FC Cincinnati was in the league, Louisville has a very close nearby team who's going to be a thorn in their side as well. Oh, in addition to Indy 11, that it's going to be a team that's going to be always kind of looking over their shoulder and saying, it's like, what are the guys across the state doing?
I think one thing that is going to be really fun, and I think it's Group 5, maybe. It's the one that has Hearts of Pine, Westchester, Detroit City, Pittsburgh, Rhode Island, that whole thing. If you are talking about teams that are just going to be really fun to watch play each other, I mean, these Rust Belt cities versus Rust Belt cities, there's something about it that does just kind of create rivalries amongst themselves. And yes, we think that the whole like, oh, they're from Maine, they're like just so super nice and all that kind of stuff. Like the Northeastern sports fandom is as vicious as it gets. When we talk about like vicious fans, right? We think about your Northeastern teams, right? And I think that you're going to see some Rust Belt versus Northeastern teams where they're going to really get under each other's skin, and it's going to be a lot of fun. I think in the same thing, and I think where you're really going to see some of this hatred pop up is going to be in League One, and we're going to move there in just a second. But League One, where you're going to have teams that are going to play each other a lot because the league is pretty small, and they're going to play each other again in the Jägermeister Cup, and there's a chance they'll play each other again in the U.S. Open Cup. You are going to see League One teams start to like really get into beef like it's COVID. We have 4 teams in a division kind of matchups. They're going to play each other like 4 or 5 times, and depending on the playoffs, 6 times in one season. It's going to be magical in terms of rivalries.
We'd be remiss if we didn't mention the return of the El Paso Union Omaha rivalry as well.